السؤال والأسئلة فلا يأتوا غدا.
لا لا لا، هو أغلبهم لن يأتي غدا، أغلبهم على كل حال. هو سجل عندنا 40 لبكرة. امبارح كان مسجل 40 لغدا، فالنهارده ممكن يزيدوا يوصلوا 100. خدت بال حضرتك؟ لكن في كل الأحوال احنا عايزين ناخد منهم، لأن مش no matter how much time we have مش هنقدر نجاوب على أسئلتهم كلها. فأنا بحب إن احنا أقترح إن احنا نعمل نص ساعة ونصف ساعة. ما رأيكم؟ إذا حابب نعدلها قول لي، نعدلها كما تحب نعدلها. عايز 40 ونص برضه مشكلة.
خليها 40 و20.
حاضر.
احنا ما نتجاوز الساعة. أنا متعمد، أنا شخصيا ما عندي شيء.
نعم.
بس حاب إنه الناس يعني يبقى متشوقين ليوم غد. إذا أعطيتهم كل ما يريدون
نعم
فلن يأتوا غدا.
لا مش هياخدوا كل ما يريدون، لو إيه مستحيل نص ساعة، لا مستحيل. لكن إن شاء الله حاضر 40 وتلت 25 كده في الحدود دي أسئلة.
يعني خلاص أنا بعد الساعة ما في أسئلة. عندي برنامج آخر نزل الدكتور حسام. نعم أقول لك نعم. أنا أقصد حتى بس نفهم الناس إنه أنا بس ننتهي سيستوقفنا الناس الأسئلة الخاصة. أقول يا جماعة بلاش أسئلة، خلوا أسئلتكم لبكرة. بكرة عندنا 3 ساعات نفعل ما نريد وزيادة يعني.
حاضر. بس أنا عارف اللي مش هيحضروا. فأنا عايز لهم نص ساعة سين ودين
والسلام خلاص.
لا مش هيتجاوب على أسئلتهم كلها. أنا عارف ما شاء الله كلهم إيه عايزين يعني يتحركوا. إن شاء الله 40 minutes تقريبا، 30 minutes تقريبا.
خير. جميل على الله يتوكل. يا ربي يا رب.
بسم الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. All praise belong to Allah. We ask Him to shower His peace, compassion, mercy and blessings upon our dear and beloved Prophet Muhammad, his family, companions, followers, and upon all of us gathered here in His blessed house. Ameen. In the name of Allah we begin, and we thank Him for providing us with all of His precious blessings. We beg Him to never deprive us of any of them and always increase us in all of them. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the education team for working tirelessly to bring amazing scholars and speakers to the Islamic Center of Greater Cincinnati. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening and taking from your precious time after a long working day. I'd like to thank everybody that's working in the background to bring these programs and support these programs. I'd like to thank the donors and sponsors of our dinners and those who support our masjid. May Allah accept from all of you. And of course, I'd like to thank our honorable and dear scholar and guest, Fadilatul Shaykh Dr. Ma'an Alqudah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and his family. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم من صنع فيكم معروفا فكافئوه فإن لم تجدوا ما تكافئونه به فادعوا له حتى تظنوا أنكم قد كافأتموه أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, anyone who offers you a service or a kind gesture, immediately compensate them. If you don't have what to compensate them with, then make so much dua for them until you feel that you have paid them or compensated them. Sheikh Ma'an flew yesterday into town, left his family, spent the entire day with us today, and then tomorrow he's with us from 10 a.m. starting his lecture. MashaAllah, he's spending the entire weekend away from his family. And for that, we owe him a great deal of hospitality and dua. So please make dua for him and his family. May Allah increase him in knowledge, and may Allah bless his family. Ameen, Allahumma ameen. Fadilatul Dr. Ma'an Alqudah needs no introduction. MashaAllah, he's a renowned scholar in the States, and he serves on the Grand Fatwa Committee in AMJA. And for those who don't know, you can look up AM as in Mary, JA online.org. AMJA online.org. This is a scholarly body of many questions that you may already have, and they've been meeting for the past 18 years, having annual conferences for scholars in the States, and they cover many different topics, very important topics that pertain to your daily lives. You can look it up and find answers to many of your questions based on a scholarly collective decision, not just individual. Fadilat Sheikh Ma'an Alqudah, mashallah, he's a PhD. He earned his PhD in Islamic Studies from the Islamic American or the American Open University in Virginia. Mashallah, he also has a master's in Islamic Economics from Al-Yarmouk University in Jordan, and a bachelor's in Economics from Al-Azhar University in Egypt. And mashallah, he's an associate professor of Islamic Studies and Finance with more than 18 plus years of experience. Dr. Ma'an Alqudah is a national speaker on Islamic finance, interest-bearing transactions, and Zakat. He is the president and co-founder of Guidance College in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to learn more about Sheikh Ma'an, you can take one of his cards afterwards and have a connection, inshallah, with one of our renowned scholars. His many personal cards are here. And without any further ado, we'd like to conduct as an efficient an event tonight as possible. And we know this is important, so we have designated 3 hours tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for those who would like to join. All you have to do is be here, and inshallah, if you register, we'll provide you with lunch as well. Jazakumullahu khairan. Tonight's program will be about a 40-minute presentation and a 30-minute Q&A, inshallah. We will do our very best to answer as many questions as possible, and inshallah, there's a continuation of the program tomorrow. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here. Without any further ado, Fadilatul Dr. Sheikh Ma'an falyatafaddal mashkoor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله لا شريك له لا إله إلا هو وإليه النشور. أمسينا على فطرة الإسلام وكلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. اللهم إنا أمسينا منك في نعمة وعافية وستر، فأتم علينا نعمتك وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما أمسى بنا من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. أحبتي، طبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا بإذن الله. ثم أما بعد. I'm really honored and glad to be with you tonight, and tomorrow, inshallah, for this presentation, Islamic Finance 101. We have a lot of things to discuss. As I said today in the khutbah, it's close to impossible to cover everything in your mind within those 4 hours presentation, 1 hour tonight and 3 hours tomorrow. However, something is better than nothing, as they say. So we'll try to touch on the most important thing that, especially those like frequently asked questions about Islamic finance. Let me start with something very fundamental here, which is the fact that Islamic finance is not only Islamic. Islamic finance is the Christian finance, and it is the Jewish finance. So the system that we believe in, that we embrace, that we try our best to practice, if you feel more comfortable calling it a Christian finance system, you are absolutely correct. If you want to call it a Jewish finance system, you are absolutely correct. We are not bringing something new as Muslim community. We are just, enhancing and implementing whatever has been implemented before. Why I'm saying so? Because what we believe in is that those major prohibited matters in Christianity and in Judaism are prohibited in Islam. We are certain, like a list, list of items, some things that you have to avoid, right? One of them is interest or riba. The one actually who prohibited riba for the Muslim community is the same one who prohibited riba for the Christian community, who is the same one who prohibited riba for the Jewish community. Yes, we do have a concern when it comes to the validity or the authenticity of the Bible that people refer and read in, but let's skip this point and just open the Bible and try to read. You will find a lot of verses either by Isa alayhi salatu wasalam or by the disciples, al-Hawariyin, where they were prohibiting their community members and followers from being involved with interest. So riba actually was prohibited for the Christian community. The Quran itself actually is the one who documented the prohibition of interest for the Jewish community, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَى, referring to the Jewish community. قال وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَى وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ. And they used to transact and deal with interest while they were prohibited from doing so. So again, Islamic finance is the Christian finance, is the Jewish finance. You can call it even divine finance system, because actually it is a derivative of the law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for us to abide, by and to implement, in this worldly life for our best interest in this worldly life and in the hereafter. We do have certain, criteria or characteristics for the Islamic finance system to be an Islamic one. Maybe the most important one is the prohibition or the banning of interest, that you are not supposed to get involved in interest. You cannot lend people with money. You cannot borrow, with money. You cannot get involved in facilitating any interest-bearing transactions. You cannot witness, any interest-bearing transaction, according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ آكِلَ الرِّبَى وَمُؤْكِلَهُ وَكَاتِبَهُ وَشَاهِدَيْهِ. However, this is not the only characteristic when it comes to Islamic finance. When you hear Islamic finance, it should come to your mind that once you get involved in any business transaction, any partnership, any enterprise, any project, you have to know who is doing what. So there is nothing called gharar or ambiguity or vagueness. You do not know who is doing what I will be getting in return, none of the above. You have to make sure that there is an ultimate transparency in any business that you get involved in. That's the Islamic finance. Islamic finance means you get involved in a business, or a project or a partnership that brings an actual and real benefit to the community. Anything that challenges the ethics of the community, and you know very well what I'm referring to. You're supposed to stay away from anything that makes no sense whatsoever. Anything that produces or brings anything that is harmful to the conviction, to the ethics, to the value, to the environment, to the human being. You're supposed to stay away from it, even if the finance way has been done according to the Islamic principles, but the outcome or the final product is a harmful one. So you're supposed to stay away from it. Let's go back to maybe the most fundamental difference between the Islamic finance and the man-made finance, or the conventional finance that is unfortunately implemented in this society. Well, it is implemented everywhere. It's a global dominating, capitalist economic and finance system that is implemented almost on the whole earth nowadays. This very fundamental difference is the prohibition or the banning of interest, which means that when someone offers money to someone else, he or she cannot give him an interest-bearing loan. I cannot give you $10,000, as simple as that. I cannot give you $10,000, with the intention, with the plan, with the stipulation that you bring it back to me $11,000, as simple as that. Now, we need to learn more about the definition of interest, because we all here agree that riba actually is haram. But the question here, what kind of riba that we are referring to? Sometimes we prefer to self-educate ourselves. We just grab a fiqh book, Hanafi or Maliki or Shafi or whatever, and you start reading, and you find yourself getting more confused versus understanding the concept of riba. You read in the classical traditional fiqh books, the examples, for example, of exchanging wheat for wheat, or barley for wheat, or rice for sugar, or orange for apple, or banana for apple, and so on and so forth. Those examples are absolutely correct, do not get me wrong, but they are very irrelevant to our society. Muslims in the United States in 2023 do not actually exchange barley for wheat or sugar for rice. If I want to buy some barley or some wheat, I use my debit card, my credit card, my cash money, sometimes even cryptocurrency. So those examples actually are definitely correct, and actually they belong to certain categories of interest. Okay, you read in those classical books riba al-fadl and riba al-nasa and riba al-nasi'a and riba al-jahiliya and riba al-ta'am, and the more you read, the more you get confused. Okay, what do those examples have to do with me, a Muslim living in this society here? I need more clarification. I want you to forget about all what you have read in the past, and I want you to skip all these different definitions of riba that are absolutely correct. They are still valid, but again, they do not belong to our society. Okay, you read here, for example, riba al-fadl, forget about it. Riba al-nasa, forget about it. Riba al-nasi'a, al-fadl plus al-nasa, all these like confusing terms, just forget about them. Let's move on all the way to this definition, and I want you to memorize it by heart. This is your homework for today. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna say it maybe 3, 4, 5, 7 times tonight, and then I will pick and choose and ask some brother and sister to say the definition by heart. If you want to take a picture, go ahead. I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, time's up. By the way, this presentation is not a copyrighted one. I sent it to the brothers, to Sheikh Hussam and to Dr. Riyad and some other brothers here. Please feel free to get your own copy. It's for everyone. Get a copy for yourself. Send it to whomever you want. It's not copyrighted. It's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the whole Muslim community, and for whosoever would like to learn about riba. I want you to, from now on, when I say interest or usury or riba, I'm referring to this very particular category, and I want you to know this definition by heart. Okay, it goes: the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension or for an extension in its maturity. Now you want to call this definition, you want to call it riba al-nasi'a, you want to call it riba al-jahiliya, riba al-duyun. It is correct, but I do not want you to confuse yourself with those technical Arabic names, right? Forget about them. Riba means the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. Let's unlock the secret of this definition, right? It looks complicated a little bit. Look at the definition again. We have a premium versus principal. Premium versus principal. So we have principal amount and we have premium, right? Or a surplus, or an amount that has to be paid on top of the premium. And contracting parties wise, we do have a lender and we have a borrower. So we're talking about two different contracting parties. Someone is lending money and someone is borrowing money. So we're talking about a loan agreement. It's a straightforward loan agreement. Someone is lending money, somebody else. So the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal, either as a condition for the loan. Condition for the loan means that if you as a borrower, as a victim, if you are not willing to commit to pay a certain amount on top of the principal, your application for the loan will be denied. You go to Bank of America, to Chase, to Wells Fargo, to Capital One, you apply for $100,000 business loan or investment loan, right? Okay, they do the math, they check your credit history, your income, whatever, and then based on that they say, okay, we'll give you $100,000 with a 3% APR. 3% APR. APR stands for annual percentage rate. Thank you. What does it mean? It means that if you are willing to proceed, you will be taking the $100,000 and you have to pay it back $103,000 within 1 year. Simple as that. Am I correct? And if you decide to keep that money for 2 years, it's gonna be a total of 106. 3 years, 109, and you do the math. based on this scenario, you have to commit to paying the premium, and the principal as well. And this is a loan, which means that the bank actually is not getting involved with you in any kind of partnership. There is no risk, there is no liability other than the default liability, which is something actually common between Islamic finance and traditional finance. We're not talking about the default liability. Default means that you, la samahallah, you pass away, you deny the loan, you skip the country, you go somewhere else. We're not talking about this kind of risk. We're talking about the risk of the outcome result of the money itself that you are taking from the bank. So you take $100,000 for 3% APR for 1 year. It means that you have to pay it back 103. This is actually regardless of the outcome result of the loan. You take that money, you're involved in a business, you upgrade your business, you make a profit, you break even, you incur loss. The bank actually does not care about you. Here is the money, you are by your own, you come back next year with a total of $103,000. If you say, well, I want to take the loan, but you know what, I'm a practicing Muslim, I do not deal with interest, okay, the answer will be, well, good for you, good luck, but you are in the wrong place. We do not give money for free, right? If you want to pay the $3,000 within 1 year, ahlan wa sahlan. Otherwise, ma'a salama, you go and try to find somewhere else. So technically speaking, this mode of finance is called a risk shifting model. Risk shifting model, in a sense that the bank is just sitting and relaxing, right? Exploiting and taking full advantage of the need of the borrower. They are not getting involved in any kind of risk, any kind of liability. Take the money, you bring it back with the premium. This is actually something that does not happen in the Islamic finance system. It does not. Just imagine that you live somewhere, somehow, okay, in an Islamic society where the Islamic finance principles are implemented 100%, and you go to Islamic Bank of America or Islamic Chase and you apply for $100,000 loan. They would say, well, we do not give you money here. Again, you are in the wrong place, because actually in the Islamic finance system, loan is not a mode of finance to start with. Loan is not a mode of finance. You cannot borrow money and pay it back with premium. So even if we have an Islamic finance system implemented 100%, you cannot get cash money, okay, based on a loan agreement. You can get cash money, but based on partnership agreement. So back to the definition here, when we say the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan. If you agree to pay 3%, here is the money. If not, then ma'asalam, you are by your own, right? Now this is one scenario, and this is actually called the risk shifting model. Remember those terms, risk shifting model. Now the other scenario, or for the extension in its maturity, which means that it might happen that you borrow money interest free for a certain period of time. If you successfully pay off the loan within the allocated time, then no consequence. You take $100,000, okay, for 1 year, interest free. If you successfully pay it back 100,000 within 1 year, then you're good to go. If you default, you have to pay some financial consequences. Let me put you on the spot. Who can give me an example of this scenario here in the USA? What can?
Credit card.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Takbir for the Sheikh. MashaAllah. So credit card actually is a very good example where you borrow money with no interest. Am I correct? No interest whatsoever. Well, sometimes even you get what is called the grace period or introductory period. Okay, you open a new line of credit, or you open like a new credit card. They give you 12, 15, 18 months introductory period. Okay, with a $10,000 line of credit. What does it mean? It means that you can borrow all the $10,000 as long as you commit yourself to pay the minimum payment of $35, $50, whatever. You're good to go all the way until the end of the introductory period. Then you have to pay everything in full. If you default, they start calculating riba against you, right? So this is actually another scenario. However, this one is prohibited and this one is prohibited, but they are not in the same level of prohibition, by the way. they are not in the same level of prohibition. If you borrow money based on an interest-free loan agreement, okay, that does have some consequences in case of default, then you can go with this transaction as needed only. But if the riba actually is, because riba here actually is avoidable, I mean, you can avoid it. And I'm positive that the vast majority of you here, well, all of you here, use a credit card, but you do not pay interest. You know very well your limits. You do not use your credit card for cash withdrawal. You do not delay your monthly payment. You pay it in full. You use your credit card for paying, like, invoices, and for like shopping online, and purchasing whatever you want. And every single month you pay the outstanding balance in full before the due date. Is that correct? So you can continue, use your credit card for years and years, decades, if you wish, without paying one single cent, one single dollar as an interest. That is the definition of riba. So from now on, when I say riba, I refer to this definition: the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. Now, the vast majority of the interest-bearing transactions in the USA belong to the first category, where riba actually is unavoidable. Riba is unavoidable. There is a certain APR, okay, and you have to commit, you have to agree to pay it upfront. Not upfront, you have to agree to pay it, right? And if you agree, you can proceed. If not, then you cannot take that loan. That is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. And by the way, this category of riba, its prohibition is something that is agreed upon. So whether you are a Hanafi or Maliki or Shafi'i or whatever your madhab might be, this kind of riba actually is haram for you. The problem that we face here, to my knowledge, and I might be wrong, is again, it's not the whether or not riba is prohibited. Problem here, what are the interest-bearing transactions to be avoided, and what are the interest-free transactions to be conducted, safely, confidently, without having a sense of guilt of committing riba. That is the problem. Do you know why? Because there is a huge difference between what you read in the classical fiqh books and on the real actual life, okay, that you practice, that you experience as an American Muslim living here in this society, right? In those classical fiqh books, you read riba al-fadl, riba al-nasa, riba al-nasi'a, riba al-jahiliya, riba al-diyun, riba al-tuffah, riba apple for apple, مش عارف, wheat for barley. All these different examples are definitely correct, but they are absolutely irrelevant to our society. Absolutely irrelevant to our society. Versus in the real life, you come across certain charges. You either charge others or you get charged by others, and you start like scratching your head, right? Is this the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited or not? You come across something called late fees. Late fees, is it riba or not? Another charge called overdraft charge. Late fees, overdraft charge, penalty, right? Interest, bonus, what else? Overtime, right? I mean, different kinds of payments you come across, and you do not know whether that charge, whether you charge it to others or you get charged by others. You do not know whether or not that payment is haram. How about cashback, for example? Cashback, is it haram, halal, riba? This is actually where the confusion is coming from. Now our job is, as I said today, is inzalul ahkami al waqa'a, is to match the definition of riba with those transactions. You can easily tell here that someone is giving money with interest, with a premium, without taking any risk. This is actually a risk shifting model. In the Islamic finance system, you cannot borrow money with interest, right? This is not an option, because loan is not a mode of finance. Okay, in the Islamic finance system, you can take money from the Islamic bank based on one of the different Islamic modes of finance. It could be murabaha, it could be musharaka, it could be ijara, okay, in which every single party has to take a certain amount of risk and liability, especially when you establish an actual, real, long-term partnership between the bank and the customer. The bank and the customer. So our job actually is to investigate and to find out if it is proven in any transaction that someone is giving money to someone else, and that financier, okay, call him financier, call him lender, call him whatever you want, is giving money, okay, risk-free. He is not taking any liability, and the APR actually is guaranteed. So the principal is guaranteed to be paid back according to the contract, and the premium on top of it is guaranteed as well. Oh, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. That's the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. You need to do the same exercise over and over and apply this definition on every single transaction. Now, in order for us to comprehend the concept more, we need to come up with some actual real examples from real life. Okay, let me give you the first example. I want to lend to Sheikh Hussam $10,000 for 1 year from now until the end of 2023. Good idea. So I told him, listen, here is a $10,000, but you have to pay me back. You have to pay me back $11,000 by the end of the year. $11,000 by December 31st, 2023. If you are okay with that, here is the money. And he said, yeah, I'm okay with that. What do you call this transaction? Interest-bearing loan, right? He wants that money to upgrade his business, to buy a car. I mean, that's absolutely up to him. He is absolutely by himself. I don't care about, why he's asking for the money. So the principal is guaranteed, and the return or the premium on top of it is guaranteed as well. Am I correct? What is the difference between this scenario or the other scenario where I have decided not to give the sheikh the money? I went to Bank of America and I opened a saving account. I opened a saving account. Based on the deal between me and Bank of America, Bank of America has to pay me back, okay, by the end of 2023, $11,000. So I open a saving account, okay, and I'm entitled to receive $11,000 total by the end of the year. Is there any technical difference, legal difference between the first scenario between me and the sheikh versus opening a saving account? So 10,000 to be given to the sheikh and to be collected 11,000. 10,000 to be given to Bank of America or BAD of America for 1 year, and to receive them how much? 11,000. Is there any difference between the two? There is no difference whatsoever. Well, believe it or not, opening a saving account is an interest-bearing loan. Opening a saving account, traditional saving account, is an interest-bearing loan. Now, when you open a saving account, it's not introduced to you that, oh, you are committing riba and you are opening saving account and this money is guaranteed, the principal and the premium. Those people actually do not care about this definition, the premium that must be paid by the, well, this is for you as a practicing Muslim. So your job actually is to unlock the secret of the transaction and to find out if the money is granted by someone and that money is guaranteed and the return on top of the principal is guaranteed as well, and there is no risk involved here whatsoever, right? Because when I open a saving account with Bank of America, it is guaranteed by the FDIC. Am I correct? Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So whatever happened to Bank of America, I don't care. Okay, I do have the right to go after them legally in the court and ask for my $11,000. So the principal is guaranteed and the return or the premium is guaranteed. Well, believe it or not, opening a saving account is not a halal option. Opening a saving account is an interest-bearing loan. Now, you might ask, okay, what is the alternative? I have like a big chunk of money. I want to save. I mean, all these different, questions are very, very irrelevant to our discussion for tonight. We are here tonight just to establish a very fundamental, very basic rules of riba, as simple as that, right? Of course, I mean, there is a solution for, we do have an answer for all these questions, but we need to establish rules here. Opening a saving account by choice, if you don't have to, opening a saving account is not a halal option because it is an interest-bearing loan. Okay, another example. You do have $500 available balance in your debit card, not credit card. debit card is connected with your checking account, right? So you have only $500, and you stop by a point of sale to purchase an iPhone for $700. Okay, most probably the transaction will go through. Most probably the transaction will go through, right? So you purchased a phone for $700 and you paid out of pocket $500, right? And then by the end of the month, or the business cycle, you receive a bank statement, $200 that have to be paid back, plus $35. I'm giving just random numbers, do not quote me there. $35 overdraft charge. Overdraft charge. Okay, what does it mean, overdraft charge here? Is it riba or not? We need to pause and just process, try to unlock the secret of the transaction. I have 500 and I purchased an item for 700. It means that someone paid on my behalf $200. Is it a gift like مشان سواد عيوني يعني? No, it is not. It is a loan that has to be paid back. So if I borrow $200 from Bank of America, from Chase, and I have to pay it back $200, then nothing to worry about. That's an interest-free loan, right? Anything that Bank of America is charging me on top of the principal of $200 will be counted as a premium, So by default, or the default rule is that the overdraft charge is riba, because the bank actually is lending. I mean, this is the fiqh interpretation of what happened. The bank actually is lending you $200, in which you have to pay it back how much? $235. That extra money is none but interest. You can easily argue that. You can say, well, hold on, this is an abnormal transaction, it needs more processing and more time, and you might be correct, you might. But again, we need to establish fundamental basic rules here. The basic rule here is that the overdraft charge that you have to pay on top of the $200 in our example is none but riba, based on the definition that this is the premium that you have to pay, like on top of the principal. Let's take some other examples, different examples. How about the cashback? Cashback. What does mean cashback? It means that you use your credit card, not debit card, your credit card, right? Okay. You purchase an item for $100 and you receive $5 cashback. Now, riba actually, who's paying like interest, like extra on top of the amount that he borrowed? Who's benefiting here? The lender is the one who's benefiting, right? And the borrower is the one who is paying premium on top of the principal, right? Now, when it comes to cashback, it's absolutely the opposite. You purchase an item for $100 using your credit card, okay, and you receive $5 back. So you paid, you borrowed $100, and the net amount that you paid back to Bank of America is 95, right? So that's completely the opposite of interest. So cashback actually is not riba. It is the opposite of riba. Another example. You want to buy a car from your non-Muslim neighbor. Owner finance. Okay. John Smith is asking for $10,000 cash for the car, and he told him, you know what, John, I do not have 10,000. How about an installment? He said, yeah, why not? So he did his own math, and he said, okay, the car will be $12,000 for 1 year. And instead of 10,000 cash, it's going to be $12,000 for 1 year, right? $10,000 price, $2,000 interest. And he insisted in putting the term interest in the contract. Do you think that if you decide to purchase the car from John Smith, $12,000 owner finance, there is no bank in between, those $2,000 extra is the same premium here that must be paid by the borrower to the lender? I want to pause for maybe 30 seconds until I take a sip of tea. I will get back to you, inshallah. Here is the answer. Does John Smith have the right to ask for $12,000 cash for the car? Yes or no? I mean, that's his car, right? And there is a lot of transparency in the market. You can just go to KBB or to CarMax and just enter the information of the car and find out, how much is the market value. Okay, so John Smith is asking for $12,000 for a car in which its market value is only $10,000, right? And it's your call. You take it or you leave it, right? So if he does have the right to ask for $12,000, okay, spot sale cash for a car that its market value is only $10,000, why cannot he break it down into 1 year? You see the logic behind it? So what I want to say here is that offering two different prices for the same commodity based on the payment plan is permissible. So he can actually, even if John Smith is a Muslim, he can ask for $10,000 cash, $12,000 for 1 year, $14,000 for 2 years, $16,000 for 3, and he can give you unlimited options. Up to this point, there is nothing haram. Once you close on the car, once you pick and choose only one option, then you have to stick to it. So the car is not $10,000 cash, it is $12,000 for 1 year. Once you close and sign, then you close. You lock the price. That price actually cannot be increased and cannot be decreased. Whatever he is referring to as an interest, believe it or not, is not the interest that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Do you know why? Because there is no loan contract to start with. Now we said here several times, right? It is the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender. Are you borrowing money from John Smith? No. The whole deal actually is just a sale agreement. It is a sale agreement and not a loan agreement. So whatever he calls or name it as interest, well, let him write whatever he wants. Let him write $2,000 interest, $10,000 principal, and the transaction actually is halal. Transaction is halal. This actually brings to our attention a very fundamental فقه maxim or قاعدة فقهية. It goes العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the essence and reality, not the wording that you use or the formality. Which means, in a very simple like words, we do not care about the terms that you use in the contract. What we care about is the essence and the reality of the deal. Okay, our job is to investigate and to scrutinize and to find out. If we can deduct someone who is giving money, right, to somebody else, and that money is guaranteed, right, and the return on that money or the premium is guaranteed as well, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited, whether it is called interest or it's called otherwise. We do not care. And that's why we said that in your deal with John Smith, he insisted in calling it riba or interest. Well, let him write interest. We do not care. That deal actually is halal because our interpretation is different. This is an installment sale. $10,000 cash versus $12,000, for 1 year. Sometimes you go to they call it Best Buy to buy some appliances, okay, and they give you an offer same as cash, $2,500. You apply غسالة or you buy غسالة or ثلاجة or dishwasher or whatever, okay, 18 months same as cash. So if you want to pay off for the dishwasher, right, or washing machine, $2,500, and if you want to break it down to 18 months, it's going to be how much? $2,500. Well, that's not riba, right? Even if they ask for $3,000, as long as this is an in-house finance between you and the buyer and the seller himself, you are not committing riba. You are not. Okay, it's not the case if you go to Bank of America and you borrow $2,500, you pay it to Best Buy, right, and you take that appliances, okay, and then you pay it back $3,000 back to Bank of, that's riba. What's the difference? Difference in the first scenario, it was an in-house finance. There was no loan agreement to start with. It is an installment sale. In the second scenario, there is a third party to finance for the transaction. In the Islamic finance system, no one actually is allowed to go with the risk shifting model. No one is allowed to give money to others and to expect the principal to be guaranteed and the profit on top of it to be guaranteed whatsoever. Every single mode of finance has to have a certain amount of risk. If that risk is not there, then the finance process is not an Islamic one, even if it is called otherwise, even if it is called Islamic. Let me give you an example. What does mortgaging a house in the USA mean from a fiqh perspective based on what we have already explained? Should I smile or for the yalla, go ahead. Cheese. Thank you. What does it mean to finance a house here? Do you know how many transactions you are going through when you mortgage a house? Again, that's our job. Our job is to investigate and to unlock the secret of the transaction. So in the same way that we explained why opening a saving account is not an option, why late fees is riba, why cashback is halal, why installment sale is halal, let's talk a little bit about mortgage. When you mortgage a house, it means that you are getting involved in 3 different transactions simultaneously, right? There is a sale agreement where you buy a house from the landlord, right? And there is a loan agreement because you do not have $500,000 to pay cash for the house, right? So you go to a mortgage company and you apply for a mortgage or a loan. And upon the approval of your application, the mortgage company would write a check of $500,000 on your behalf, payable to whom? To the landlord, right? That $500,000 has to be paid back how much? $800,000 within the next 30 years, right? Now, in order for the mortgage company to secure their money, they put a lien on the property. They mortgage the property. In case of death, in case of default, whatever happened to you, they can just repossess the property or foreclose and get their property back. So we're talking about 3 different transactions in one. Sale agreement, where you buy from the landlord. Loan agreement or interest-bearing loan agreement, where you borrow money from the mortgage company, right? And a mortgage agreement, where the mortgage company actually mortgages the property, put a lien on the property. We do not have any issue with the sale agreement. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, right? We do not have any issue with the mortgage agreement. Mortgage agreement means collateral. Someone wants to borrow $100 from me, right? And I do not know that individual very well. Can I ask him for his phone to give it to me as a collateral, or his watch, for example? Give me your watch, give me your phone, and here's the $100. Whenever you come back to me and give me the money, I'll give you your phone back. Is this haram or halal? That's halal, right? وَإِن كُنتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضَةٌ. الرهان in the Quran is the mortgage, believe it or not. الرهان in the Quran, in ayat al-Baqarah, وَإِن كُنتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضَةٌ. That rihan actually is halal. So a rihan, or the mortgage according to the Quranic terminology, is halal, and the sale agreement is halal. The only issue we have here is with the loan agreement. With the loan agreement. So 3 different simultaneous transactions. 2 of them are halal, and 1 of them is haram. Okay. If you want to be like very democratic, you want to go with the majority. 2 halal against 1 haram, so the whole deal should be halal. Well, unfortunately, in the Islamic finance system, it goes the other way around, right? If it is proven that one segment of the deal is extremely clearly prohibited, then that's more than enough to ruin the whole deal and to make it a haram one. Now, in the Islamic finance system, we do not go with the risk shifting, we go with the risk sharing. Okay, let's take an actual real example. We have 2 different brothers here. We have Muhammad and Abdullah, and they both want to mortgage a house. Just imagine, which is absolutely not the case, unfortunately, that we do have genuine sound Islamic finance practice, real 100% Islamic finance. It's not the case nowadays. It is not, unfortunately. So we have Muhammad and Abdullah. They both want to mortgage their homes. Muhammad decided to go with Bank of America, and Abdullah decided to go with the Islamic mortgage company. Muhammad applied for $500,000, and Abdullah did the same. Muhammad was approved, and Abdullah was approved, right? Muhammad has to pay the $500,000 $800,000 within the next 30 years. And Abdullah has to pay $800,000 within the next 30 years. Someone actually has no clue of what's going on, passing by Muhammad and Abdullah and saying, well, what is the difference? Muhammad borrowed $500,000, has to pay it back $800,000, and Abdullah, quote unquote, borrowed $500,000 and he has to pay it back $800,000. Are you catching up with me here? Okay. What is the difference? Well, that's a wonderful question. Okay. This question, actually, believe it or not, was raised 1400 plus years ago. The exact question. People actually were confused between riba and bay'a. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع حرم الربا. So that confusion, that misconception, misunderstanding, right, and confusion that people have actually is not something new. It was raised a while ago during the revelation of the Quran. Here is the fact. I'm going to share with you the facts here. Muhammad actually did pay 5% down payment, right? And he is now paying the principal 95% plus interest. During those 30 years, Muhammad is absolutely by himself. So the maintenance, the tax, the insurance is his absolute responsibility. If there is any appreciation or depreciation in the market value of the house, that is his, right? If he decides to sell the house, then he has to secure and pay the principal back to the mortgage company plus interest for that certain period of time. If something happened, natural disaster or eminent domain or whatever, the mortgage company actually does not have any business to do with him. You are by your own. Here is $500,000. You pay it back $800,000 within 30 years. Period. That's it. Abdullah is completely different. Abdullah gets involved in what is called a diminishing partnership. Diminishing partnership. Sometimes they call it a declining partnership. He purchased 5% equity of that house, and the mortgage company paid the rest. And based on this declining partnership, okay, the mortgage company, the Islamic mortgage company, that does not exist nowadays, and Abdullah, they have to share the expenses of running that house and maintaining the house proportionally. Based on this mode of finance, which is an ideal one, by the way. Let's say, for example, that the fair rental value of that house is $2,500 a month. The mortgage company would ask Abdullah to pay them $3,000 a month. Now Abdullah owns how much? 5% only, and the mortgage company owns 95%. Are you following up with me here? Abdullah and his family members will be living exclusively in that house. So it makes a lot of sense that they are renting the share or the percentage of equity of the mortgage company. Does that make sense? Right? Now, if the fair rental value is $2,500, the mortgage company, Islamic mortgage company, is asking him to pay $3,000 to increase his equity in the property. So they start the deal with 5%, 95%, right? After paying the first payment, he becomes 6% owner, and their equity goes down to 94, 7%, 93, all the way within those 30 years until the very last payment, where he becomes 100% owner of the property and he kicks them out of the deal. That's why they call it declining or diminishing partnership. Now the good news here is that throughout 30 years, 33 years, believe it or not, partnership, they have to share the major expenses of the property proportionally. Let's say, for example, after 5 years, he became a 20% owner, right? And they became 80% owner. The maintenance, the major maintenance, major repair, has to be shared between Abdullah and the mortgage company, 20%, 80%. Property tax, $1,000, he has to pay monthly. He has to pay $200, and they have to pay $800. Insurance, $2,000 a year, right? He has to pay $400, and they have to pay $1,600. So they are real, actual partners. Not only that, if something happened, appreciation or depreciation, let's say appreciation, and instead of like being $500,000, it became, for whatever reason, $700,000, the market value, right? And Abdullah decided to move from Cincinnati and to go like down to Texas, to Houston, where the weather is very nice, where I live there. So he said, you know what, Cincinnati actually is too cold for me. So he put the house in the market, and the house actually was sold for a profit. He is entitled to 20% of the increase, right? And they are entitled to 80%. Something happened, the market value was decreased, was depreciated. He incurs 20% of the loss, right? And they incur 80% of the loss. Something happened and the government, the state or whatever, decided to like demolish the property. That's called eminent domain, right? And they did not compensate him well. There was a loss. He incurs only 20% of the loss, and they incur natural disaster. Insurance did not cover for some reason, right? He incurs only 20%, and they incur how much? 80%. All the above scenarios do not happen with whom? With Muhammad. Muhammad actually was just a borrower, miskeen, victim, wallahi. He has been victimized by the mortgage company. So he is absolutely by his own. The very last thing before I open the floor for question and answer. Our American colleagues ask us a question. If you go to the bank and you borrow money for 3% and you make 10-15% profit, right? And you pay the principal plus interest to the bank, it's a win-win situation. It's a very healthy circumstances. Everybody is happy. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making our life difficult and He prohibits interest? What your answer would be? Here is my answer. That scenario does happen, but it's not the only scenario. It did happen, and it does happen, and it will continue to happen, that you borrow money from the bank, and instead of making 10-15%, sometimes you make 100% profit. Wallahi, sometimes, and I'm responsible for what I say, sometimes you make 1,000% profit. 1,000% profit, sometimes more. Is it fair enough to pay the principal and only 3% to the bank, and you take the rest of the profit? Are you doing justice to the bank? If you make 1,000%, balash 1,000, keep it just 100%. So you take $1 and you make $1 out of the $1. Is it fair enough to pay the bank only 3% and you keep the rest for yourself? Where is the justice here? Now the other extreme scenario might happen, that you borrow money from the bank, like what happened with those who borrowed money back in March 2020, just a few weeks before the COVID-19, where the whole economy in the USA got frozen, right? By the law of the land, the banks actually can go after those borrowers and ask them for the principal and for the interest as well. Those people did not do anything wrong. They just borrowed the money. Because of the freezing of the economy, they were unable to make a profit. They were unable to break even. They were unable even to survive. What happened is that they lost their principal. Well, the bank actually does not care about them, right? And this is an extreme dhulm and injustice. So our answer is that whenever you allow interest to be implemented, you have to take the whole package. Interest actually brings a lot of injustice and financial exploitation in the society, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants justice to be implemented. In the matter of fact, the Quran itself is the one who indicated clearly that the main reason, believe it or not, the main reason behind sending all the prophets and messengers is to establish justice on earth. Justice in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? I mean, you situate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the right situation. You worship Him because He is the only one who deserves to be worshipped. When it comes to transaction, justice means you have to stand against riba, because riba brings a lot of injustice and financial exploitation. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said toward the end of Surah Al-Hadid, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. We have sent our prophets with the clear signs. وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانِ. And we sent with them al-kitab, the scriptures, and al-mizan, the scale. Why, Ya Allah, you did all that? Why? قَالَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. So people actually would stand and would implement justice. And when you allow riba to be implemented, you are standing against justice, and you are implementing injustice where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want injustice to be implemented on earth. Again, it's a very long topic and a very interesting topic. I know that you have a lot of questions. We'll be covering, inshallah, whatever Sheikh Hussam allows us for tonight, inshallah. And the rest of the questions, inshallah, will be handled tomorrow between 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. 10 a.m. in the morning until 1 p.m. وجزاكم khair.
Jazallahu anna Shaykhana khair al-jaza. May Allah bless and reward our esteemed scholar and Shaykh. Ameen Allahumma ameen. So we are going to open the floor for questions. We ask you to ask your question loud and clear. Since I have the mic, I'll ask the first question. Fadilat Shaykh Dr. Ma'an, you gave us the example of Muhammad and Abdullah, and if Abdullah was the one that was using the theoretical Islamic model, that seems to not exist today in practical terms. What is the option for the Muslim American?
Let's draw a line between the necessity of finding a place to live in, like a shelter or apartment or house or whatever, versus owning the house, right? The necessity here actually is to find a suitable place for you to live in, right? If you do have an Islamic alternative, genuine and sound one, go for it, right? If that theoretical or like ideal Islamic finance is not there, but we do have some companies who implement 40, 50, 60% of the Islamic finance, either by choice or by force, because they are limited and restricted by the rules and the regulations of the mortgage code in the US, especially those 5 major companies who deal in the secondary market, who sell their products to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and they are 60-70% Sharia compliant. Then you may choose to go with those companies, because otherwise, like if you insist on buying a house, otherwise if you do not go with XYZ Islamic mortgage company that is 60%, or as I call it, halal enough one, you will be going with the absolute haram one. So from a very practical, reasonable perspective, going with whatever is available, semi-halal or halal enough option, is way better than going with the haram one. Providing that you don't have to own a house, as long as you can afford renting a house, right? Renting a house, then you just limit yourself to renting a house until you find a halal alternative, and you just go with it. Bear in mind that the majority of those companies, well, all of them cannot implement genuine, sound Islamic finance practice. They cannot, because next day in the morning they just sell the contract to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and those federal or semi-federal investment companies, they require that contract is to be just a very traditional, conventional mortgage one, which means that it has to be a loan. So $500,000 are to be paid back $800,000 within 30 years in our example. If they sense or they just smell any kind of liability, responsibility, maintenance, tax, insurance, appreciation, they said, well, you know what, you are by your own, we cannot buy that contract. So they have to those companies, they have to be Freddie Mac compliant and a Sharia compliant at the same time, which is literally impossible because of the severe incompatibility between the Islamic finance one and the conventional one. So long story short, we do not have to own homes, because actually mortgaging house is not is not a halal option because of the interest-bearing loan. The Islamic mortgage companies, they are not in the same level of permissibility. Some of them are more serious and more dedicated to implement Islamic finance or to provide an Islamic finance option. Go to AMJA website, or just Google AMJA, AMJA Islamic Mortgage Companies. Just Google it, AMJA Islamic Mortgage Company, and you will be reading a very detailed declaration in both in Arabic and in English about those 5 major companies in the USA, which one of them is more halal than others, and you might choose to go with like one of those companies if it is halal enough according to AMJA, and just purchase a house.
As we are taking your questions, you have surveys to fill out. Please provide us with that feedback so we could refine our process and provide you with improved programs. There's a QR code for those who can take a picture of it, and there are hard copies. So please don't forget, as you exit, to please fill out the surveys and provide them for any of our wonderful education team members. Yes, please.
Right. And I would suggest actually for those who want to be like, well versed in Islamic finance to join Guidance College. We do have a program called Masters in Islamic Economics and Finance. Masters in Islamic Economics and Finance. You will be studying in this program what you cannot find somewhere else, because we focus on fiqh al-mu'amalat. So we build a very fundamental, strong foundation of the business transaction from a pure fiqh perspective, and then we build on it the contemporary transactions and the finance system actually in the USA. But to answer your question, Akhi, and to keep it brief, you are not responsible for the source of funding of those companies. You are not. Your responsibility is limited to the soundness or to the permissibility of the deal that you sign with them. So let's say, for example, that you agree with me that the mode of finance of XYZ mortgage company is good enough, is halal enough, right? Go ahead and mortgage your house with them, even if you are positive that they turn their face next day in the morning and they sell the contract to Freddie Mac. That is actually their responsibility. It's not a part of our scrutinization process. Let me put it this way. A very good evidence for that is that the Prophet ﷺ used to transact with the Jewish community in Medina. Am I correct? And the Jewish community actually were implementing riba and dealing with interest day and night. It was never ever reported that the Prophet ﷺ stopped any transaction until he asked the other contracting party, "Oh, where did you get your money from? Are you dealing with interest or not? Did you borrow your money?" He did not do that. He was just focusing on the permissibility of the deal that he is conducting with other people. Did I answer the question? Up to certain limit.
We'll take a question from the sisters. We'll read a question from the sisters' questions then. Inflation-linked bonds, is that halal? There's a second inflation question. With inflation being a factor, what's the incentive to lend someone money? Can it be tied to gold price at the time of lending? And I can't read the rest because it's handwriting.
When it comes to bonds, actually, bonds are haram. Bonds actually means interest bearing. Can I have that? When you have sometimes they call it a T-bill or a bond. Bond actually is an interest bearing. It means that you are lending the federal government or Uncle Sam certain amount of money. So when you hold a bond of $10,000, you will be getting $500 within 1 year or 2 years, more or less, upon the maturity of the bond, according to the technical terminology. Upon the maturity of the bond, you will be receiving the interest. So whether it is inflation linked, okay, or not inflation linked bond, by default, whenever you hear bond, it's not a halal option. So in the stock market, you have to stay away from bonds and derivatives and what else, futures and options. I always say options are not an option. Options are not an option. You have to limit yourself only to stocks Stocks that belong to companies where their core business is a halal one. Now, that's the first one. The second one about inflation. Okay, with inflation being a factor, what is the incentive to lend someone? Well, again, loan is not a mode of finance in the Islamic finance system. If I do have $100,000 cash available, which is absolutely not the case, and I know that a businessman or a businesswoman, okay, wants to borrow that money from me, and I'm a practicing Muslim like you all, alhamdulillah, and he is a practicing Muslim, so he's asking me for $100,000 loan for 2 years, right? Am I expected to take any money from him? No, right? Because we both are practicing Muslims, right? So he wants to take my $100,000 to invest it in a business or to upgrade his business and to make 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% profit, and to come to me after 2 years, right? Giving me a big hug, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair, thank you so much, here is your money back. Seriously? So you take my money for 2 years and you make money out of my money, and then you pay me back the principal inflated, right? Inflated. So the market value went down, especially nowadays in the USA in 2022, 2023, inflation rate reached more than maybe 9%, right? 9%, which is something like unprecedented. Anyway, and that's why I always say that loan is not a mode of finance. Do not give your money to someone who wants to use your money for business purposes. If that person actually wants to make a business, I would say, well, let's sit down and talk business. What kind of business you have? Oh, car dealership. Okay. If I trust his skills and abilities in running that business, I would give him that $100,000 as a partnership. That's called mudaraba. Mudaraba, trustee partnership. I give him the money as a partner, as an investor, not as a lender. Now, based on this deal of mudaraba, if he makes money, we share the profit based on whatever ratio we agree on, 50-50, 60-40, 30-70, whatever. And if there is no profit whatsoever for whatever reason might be, then he is supposed to pay me back the principal toward the end of the year. Worst case scenario, there was no negligence or carelessness or whatever from his side, and he lost the money. Believe it or not, I cannot even go after him. I cannot go after him and ask for my principal. That is the Islamic finance that we are talking about. So this is, to answer this question. Do not give your money, please do not give your money to someone who wants your money for business purposes, okay? You need to learn more about the mudaraba, okay, mode of finance, and the musharaka, the partnership, and the ijara, the lease to own. Once you master those Islamic modes of finance, you can custom design a deal that fits your need, yourself and the other party, and you do business in a away from banks and traditional financing institutes. Okay, yeah. From an Islamic perspective, akhi, loan is to be given as a kind of devotion, a kind of sadaqah, kind of like cooperation between people. So when you give someone a certain amount of money, make sure that he is desperately in need for that money, right? For living purposes, like to pay the bills or to do a surgery or to pay the rent or the tuition fees. I mean, something that is necessary. Now, a part of the devotion and seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to incur the inflation, you have to incur the loss. And that's why loans are not supposed to be more than just for a few weeks or a few months, right? It makes no sense that when someone is borrowing $10,000 for necessities and he sleeps on the money for 1 or 2 or 3 years, that makes no sense. However, if it did happen, you cannot charge him more than the principal amount, with very few exceptions here. If the inflation is more than 1/3, which is a very rare circle, like more than 1/3, then that is to be handled in a different way, where you, the lender, and the borrower share the loss 50-50. This is like a very, very rare circumstances. Otherwise, you give him $10,000, you receive it back 10,000. Now, if you want to be in the safe side, and you do not trust the inflation fluctuation in the USA, a very good idea is to give him gold, like a pure 24 karat gold. Give him 10 grams, 15 grams, like ounce or whatever they call it, right? And ask him to pay you back in gold. So give him 25 grams of gold and ask him to give it back to you 25 grams of gold. Otherwise, أخي, الديون ترد بمقدارها لا بقيمتها. 10,000 are to be paid back 10,000. If you open the floor for the inflation, then that's it. I mean, riba will be implemented, around the clock.
We have about 26 questions. Some of them are double questions. And we are out of time for this evening. But I promise to give all of your questions as I receive them in order to Fadilatul Dr. Ma'an tonight. And if you show up tomorrow, I will kindly ask Fadilatul Dr. Ma'an to answer these questions tomorrow morning, inshaAllah ta'ala, for you. Again, this is a very in-depth topic. 1 hour is not enough to cover it. That's why we have 3 more hours tomorrow. I have your questions here. I tried to place them in order as best as possible. I will hand them over to Fadilatul Dr. Ma'an. Inshallah, he will spend some time during Tahajjud or after Fajr to read them. And then inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow morning, you do your end of the bargain, show up here bright and early, buy a nice cup of coffee or brew it at home, and inshallah ta'ala we will spend some time with our esteemed scholar to learn and get answers for these questions, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair. If you want to learn more about Guidance College and different academic programs, go to guidancecollege.org. Here is the main line number. Here is my email, drman@guidancecollege.org. For business people who are looking for Sharia compliance consultation, actually I do it as a business, as a side business. Go to this link. I do not have okay, and you can contact me. I will see you inshallah tomorrow at 10 a.m. We have inshallah 3 hours that inshallah will be more than enough to and we do have actually I do have business cards here for those who are interested. Jazakumullah khair. We'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
دكتورنا الكريم والشيخ برضه ايوه so they are kindly requested to come tomorrow. I have to come. I told them to show up. We'll try to answer.